the Lazy Money Machine, Graham Brown and Erik Tenhaver. Erik, are
Yes.
you an avid TV watcher?
I am. Oh, this is a tough one. I used to be. I used to make it sort of part of my round down routine at the end of the day, and
Right.
in bad days I still do so. So I have to admit that sometimes I'm still binging an hour on useless zapping around on TV.
Binging. But yeah, it's a bit of a like vegetate in front of the TV at the end of the day. That's kind of what, that seems to be part of people's routines, doesn't it?
Yes.
Just to sort of turn off rather than to get anything interesting out of TV. But it's work in progress, isn't it, for everybody? I don't think anybody's 100% TV free.
No.
It's hard work, isn't it? Because it's always there. I mean, you go to a hotel room and you walk into the hotel room and the first thing that greets you is they've turned the TV on for you, right? So there's this article in The Ringer which basically it's about TV. It says, which disappointing TV show do you resent, and the important use of the word resent there, do you resent for consuming your time?
Okay.
And it tells us that the Ringer staff are here to tell you about TV programs that they disliked but couldn't stop watching. And we've got a list here. We've got Game of Thrones, Twin Peaks, it goes on, House of Cards, The Walking Dead, etc. All the sort of common names that you would expect, HBO-style series, etc. I find this really interesting because it's almost as if these people are addicted to TV because even though they resent the TV content, they can't stop watching it.
Okay.
I mean, right. I mean, I've never actually watched a single episode of Game of Thrones. How about you?
Well, the whole list, I've just checked the article, and none of these TV programs I have ever watched. None.
Right.
So no Game of Thrones, no Goliath, or no Dexter. I don't even know what it's about. No Westworld, nothing.
Right. You haven't watched Twin Peaks or...
No. I found one.
House of Cards.
I've watched Lost, but that was like when it started, which is like, 500 years ago or something.
Yeah. So I find this really interesting. And the reason is because it's this point here, which I find fascinating. It says here, the Ringer staff is here to tell you about the television programs that they dislike but couldn't stop watching. And they resent them for consuming their time. What sort of mind processes are going on here? That somebody completely resents this thing, but it's wasting their time, but they can't stop doing it. That sounds like an addiction, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, that sounds like also blaming something else for your own issues, right? I mean, the fact if you're sitting in front of the TV for 2 or 3 hours consuming TV series, I mean, if that's what you want to do, you then enjoy it. Just make it, admit that that's something you enjoy doing and it's worth your time. And just enjoy it. Don't go afterwards and say, I was watching 4 episodes of Games of Thrones last night. I should have done my homework, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. Don't. I mean, if it's what you want to do, enjoy it, but don't complain afterwards and put the blame on the TV show. But I mean, they make it very addictive, of course. I mean, the only TV series that is being watched in this house is Blacklist, I think. And
right, I wouldn't even know what that is.
Okay, so it's a guy that points out criminals one by one, and then he informs the police to catch them. And it's always there's always enormous cliffhangers at the end of the episode, of course. So they make it, the guys, we have to remember the guys that make TV series, they're like, psychological manipulators, right? They know exactly how to hook you in to go and watch the same thing next week. Or, if you're on Netflix, you can watch it right away, of course. So I think the TV series makers are creating this so that you do get hooked. And I do think you need to be really careful in, getting signed up for certain TV series as if you have to watch them. Now, fortunately, a lot of it is changing because a lot of it is on demand now, of course. I mean, it used to be that, 7 o'clock on a Friday night, you had to be home to watch the A-Team, or, that's how old I am. So, you had to be home to watch it, right? Or the Dukes of Hazzard, or, that's completely gone now, which I think makes it even worse, right?
Dukes of Hazzard.
You remember that?
Did you seriously say that?
Yeah. I watched that when I was young.
Right. It's funny, isn't it? It's a different era in the sense that I think, we used to, as kids, we watched a ton of TV. That's all we did, really. Watch TV at the weekend and then go out and play.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything else, really. You couldn't go out and you couldn't consume stuff. You couldn't go on the internet and look at stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it was a completely different era. But what I'm sort of very conscious of is how much time it takes up. Mm-hmm. Not just in my life, but in my family's life. Mm-hmm. So, there was a point where we didn't have a TV. We got rid of it.
How did you do that?
Well, just didn't have a TV. That's how we did it.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, and then sort of, I think my son was about 2 or 3, and then we got a TV because of all the children's BBC and all that stuff. So, it was just a thing because it gave him something to watch as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of pressure. I remember here's the thing. I remember one day I was helping my neighbor move stuff. He was moving a sofa. I think he was moving out of the house. So I was helping him move a sofa into a truck. We were loading it onto a truck and we were talking. He was talking about all the TV he was watching. Mm-hmm. And he asked me what I watched. And I said, I don't have a TV.
Right.
And he just turned around completely shocked and said, what do you mean? What do you do?
Yeah.
As if, there wasn't life outside of TV. So I find it interesting. I think it's very consuming, but to be conscious of it and to know that, there's life after TV is kind of important, isn't it?
How did your family in life change when you didn't have the TV?
When we didn't have one.
Yes.
It wasn't like incredibly revelational in the sense that everything improved. Mm-hmm. It's just a small nudge, isn't it? I think you got to replace it with something. That's the thing. So I think the main thing is to, like, remember we talked about smartphones, mm-hmm. is to remove TV make TV free areas. So, for example, like we don't have TV in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. We don't have TV in the place where we eat as well, because I think, once you start putting TV in these places, it just takes over.
Yes.
Like taking your smartphone to bed as an example, right? So, yeah, I think those will have major impacts, right? So when we sit down to eat dinner at the table. I know you started doing this as well now, where you actually sit down and you have long, not extraordinarily long, but sit down and have like meaningful dinners with your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I spoke about this in one of the previous episodes, but we have a rule that we can't we can't touch any mobile phones during any meal. Right. And if we do, there's a money penalty. That money goes in the kitty.
I thought you'd have like a food penalty, like a forfeit. Right? Okay, you touched your phone. Now we're going to take away dessert.
No. It's just a money penalty. But we've done some other things, but that is really the main one that we have. That during dinner there's no handphones, because we're talking about TV, but in general, TV used to be the time sucker of the 90s and the 2000s. Right now we have mobile phones and we have computer screens. My kids, they don't watch TV. My daughter knows how to find new TV series on the internet without Netflix even, right? So and they're watching TV on computers, or they're consuming video content on a computer. So not watching TV it's being replaced by a lot of media right now. Like we said, mobile phones, computer screens. And we have to be really cautious of that, I think, because it doesn't add a whole lot of things into our lives except, being entertained, I think.
Have you noticed that if you ever go into a cafe, and sometimes they have this in bars and pubs, they have a TV screen that's on.
Yes.
I find that to be the most distracting thing, because everybody gravitates towards it, don't they? Everybody looks at it.
Yeah.
Even though it's crap. It could just be the news, which they've seen 5 times today. So the TV screen's there and everybody's looking at it. It's so hard to have a conversation with that going on, because everybody's staring in that direction and you're sort of fighting with that. Mm-hmm. I remember once going into the gym And, you know, in the gym, they often have TV screens and it's like MTV or whatever blaring out.
Yep.
I went into the gym once, I think it was in a hotel, and it was just me. And they had this MTV screen blaring out music. I just went and turned it off. I thought, oh, it's beautiful. It's nice and quiet. So I'll just exercise in peace, just me on my own, because it was early in the morning.
Yeah.
And what happened is this guy from the hotel walks into the gym, sees that I'm there, walks across, looks at the TV screen that it's off, picks up the remote control, turns the TV screen back on, and then walks out.
Well, you're on the treadmill or you're, bench pressing a 70, 80 kilos. Or
And I don't know. It's just funny because it's like he thought, I don't know, people I think are scared of the quiet, aren't they? They have to have this thing on. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen if you turn this thing off. People start thinking and talking.
Yeah, and the other experience that I have a few friends where if I walk into their house at any time of the day, in the living room or the main area where they reside, the TV's on CNN or on news or on sports. It's like, wallpaper. I mean, how can you concentrate? How can you even think when that stuff is going on in your life?
Yeah,
it seems very odd to me. And we've got very limited times that the kids can and us also can watch TV. But we do movie nights, so that's quite fun, right? So on Friday nights or in the weekend, or like my son is now completely into Bundesliga football, so the German league, and he's a fan of Bayern München because Arjen Robben is playing there. So
he's not a fan of Ajax.
No. So he's a fan of Bayern München, and the good thing is that it's all the bad thing. It's on TV here, but he's now for him it's like a huge event because he's now he's now looking forward to watching Bayern München on Saturday night at 12 midnight. He's planning his whole weekend around watching that. And I think that's kind of cute,
cool.
And that's
but that's very different, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a very different experience.
Yeah,
it's almost because that's an experience that can be shared as well, and he'll talk about it with his mates. And
we do the same for Formula One, for instance. Max Verstappen, the Dutch Formula One racer, is very successful now. So, I mean, but we don't need to necessarily, if we miss it also every once in a while because it's late but then the anticipation of what's going to happen, that's quite nice. But then it's like an event, right? It's not, okay, it's 8 o'clock, we've had coffee and dessert and now we're going to go and, sit for 3 hours until 11 before we go to bed and watch TV, because that used to be sort of my rhythm. And I find it, the reason why it happens to me is because it's usually the time that my energy is the lowest at the end of the day, and then you feel like, okay, let me just go and veg in front of the TV. But it's really disturbing if it becomes a habitual thing that you're doing. Because it's like every night, in Holland it used to be like 8 o'clock is coffee time. So then after the coffee, everybody would be watching the news. So that's the other thing. It would be news at certain hours, and then we would watch the news and watch this and watch that. And before you know it, you're 3-4 hours down the road.
Yeah.
And you have
news and ads as well. Don't forget.
So I've sort of broken free from it for the most part now in my life, and I'm quite happy with it. And I'm removing more and more and more of these distractions. And I found myself actually this week. So last week I did a complete cleanup of my social media. I threw away a lot of things. I wrote about it in the Lazy Money Machine group as well. Like, got rid of Instagram and a whole bunch of things on my phone. Only got Facebook on my phone now. And I found myself this week for the first time in a long time feeling less anxious, and even having the feeling sometimes that I've got nothing to do, and which is great because then there's empty space all of a sudden, and it's really good actually.
Yeah, that anxiety is key, isn't it? That's TV and media, all media, whether it's smartphone or TV. I think what we're trying to say here is you can't live without this stuff, but you should have some kind of clear understanding of what's good for you and what isn't, and double down on what's good and trying to eliminate what isn't. You can't live without your mobile phone. You can't live without Facebook. So it's understanding what you should do and what you shouldn't do, isn't it? Having clear rules. Otherwise, you end up, like you say, with that 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock thing where, it just becomes a thing, a part of your life, and you don't really think about it. And I think at that time as well, your decision making energy is at its weakest, isn't it? So you're just kind of just consuming all this crap, and that makes you anxious because all that crap is telling you that you're not kind of good enough, or look at your life compared to all these wonderful lives, right?
Yeah.
So that's the challenge. I think, we're not trying to be like monks and go off and live in the cave in the mountain, right? You got to live with this stuff, but you just have to control it somehow. So I'm curious to hear how people do it. So, I mean, if you have gone through this yourself, whether it's TV or smartphone, Facebook, whatever it is, what are you doing to limit and control that in your life in a positive way? Like, are you eliminating it all, or are you sort of doubling down and just doing like, the TV nights, like Erik says, those kind of things, movie nights? Yeah, be interested to hear. So hit us up on the Lazy Money Machine newsletter. If you're on the newsletter, just hit us a reply to this. If you are in our group, then feel free to respond to this, and we're interesting to learn because we don't have all the answers. This is Graham Brown and Erik Tenhaver, and this is all about, can you live without TV?